take a battle your shit? When you take a shit, do you battle it?
I think so.
Is that what you'd call it? I mean, I guess so, because you're trying to...
It
Depends what you've eaten, but I'd say that you have to battle it. I'd say it's a rough...
I would agree.
You know, to get it out. It depends.
Personally.
Depends what... are we rolling? Oh, my bad. Hey, everybody. Beanie Too Small for my head here, and I'm going to be talking about the time I was traumatized and became an absolute fucking psychopath. So I think probably the worst thing that happened to me in my life was getting into the horror genre, because, you know, you cannot have a social life if you're into the horror genre, because everyone thinks you're an absolute freak. So anyway, the second worst thing to happen to me in my life, besides, you know, being born, was most likely getting into horror stuff. And I'm 90% sure it started when I was around 9 years old. I don't know. I don't really remember exactly when it was. I was probably 9, I think, now that I think about it. So let's call it 2009. 2009 kind of time, I took my little child ass into London. I'm going to rephrase that because that sentence just didn't really work for me. I took myself into London with my family. I'm pretty sure it was my mom. It's just my mom, actually. It was just my mom. Now, before I continue with the story, my mom is a lovely woman and I love her very much. But she is solely responsible for getting me into the horror genre and most likely traumatized me with this day trip. I thank her for it now, but back then, it absolutely shit me up and I probably pissed myself more days of the week than not. I was 9 years old pissing the sheets. Like, I don't even care to admit that at this point. I was just pissing everywhere. I would wake up in the night dreaming about this thing that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, and my mom would be like, "Oh, what are you doing, PiranhaRoni, on youtube.com/subscribe? Why did you piss all over your bed sheets again for the 7th time this week?" 7th time this week? God damn, a whole week straight of bed pissing. Damn, that was a lot of bed piss. We're getting off topic here. So anyway, we're at this museum in London. It's called Ripley's Believe It or Not. It looks a little bit like this. It's a cool little museum. You go there to believe things or not. You know, they don't give a shit. They got your money. You believe it or you don't. You believe it or you get the fuck out. They don't care. They've got a bunch of cool stuff like the world's biggest car, or like the world's tallest man, the world's fattest fish, the biggest dick ever found on an armadillo. I don't really know. I haven't been there in a few years. It's a pretty tough place to go back to. It's like Brie Larson trying to go back to the room in the movie Room. It's a similar scenario that we got going on here. So anyways, this Ripley's Believe It or Not place, they've got a bunch of cool stuff here. They've got like a car section, an underwater section, like a body horror section, like the world's biggest stretched ears and stuff. Like, unironically, it's really cool and it's a really, really fun museum to go to. But they also have this like torture section. They've got this torture section where they just show you all of these old torture methods, and it's like, do you believe this was really used or not? And it's like, well, yeah, I fucking believe it was used. You're telling me it was used. What am I gonna think? Like, if your buddy handed you a condom and was like, here, use this, I've used it, but like, use it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna believe him. I'm not gonna say, I don't believe you, just slap that shit on. I'm gonna catch like type 5 diabetes if I do that. So yeah, I believe all of the things in there were used, Ripley. I don't care what you're trying to tell me. I think everything in that museum was definitely used. So these torture devices range from small cages that you'd lock your grandma in when she's off her meds to electric chairs. And my favorite one is probably the electric chair. Now, to demonstrate the electric chair, they had this animatronic prop, and it looks a little bit like this. Now they've got that in the corner of the room, or like the center of the room, but it's the corner. It's hard to explain. But like the room is kind of shaped weird. So just imagine it in the middle of the room, and it's surrounded by like everything else. So you walk around in a big circle around, you can see everything else, and then this chair is in the middle, right? So we walk in and we look at all these props, and I'm sitting there like 9-year-old me. I see this big electric chair in the middle. So oh, fucking hell, you know, oh Jesus, that's a little bit spooky. You know, that's a bit spooky if I do say so myself. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna try and avoid that. So I'm like back up against the wall. Do you know what I mean? I'm like backing up against the wall. Like I'm like way back up against the wall. I don't want to see it at all. I don't want to go near it. I don't want to touch it. And preferably don't want to activate it, because it's like a button activated animatronic thing, right? So this like button activated animatronic thing, I see other people activating it, and it's like a button or a lever. I think it was a lever now that I think about it. And you pull it and you pull the fucking dildo down, and it makes this noise and it activates like I showed you a moment ago. So there's me, little 9-year-old, trying not to activate it, and my mom's like, do it. Now. Do it. Now. And I'm like, I don't really, I don't really think that's for me. And she's like, do it. Do it. Do it. It's not real. It's not real. Do it. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Okay, sure, if you say so. So I pull this thing, and, you know, it goes off, and I'm sitting there in the middle, or I'm standing there in a puddle of my own urine, staring at this big animatronic, you know, man in this chair, and he's shaking there, you know, he's doing the whole thing, and he's everything, and I'm just kind of watching it, all my innocence being stripped away, you know, like in Indiana Jones when everyone kind of like melts when they look into the Lost Ark. That's kind of how I felt, my innocence stripping away from my very being. It was kind of melting off of me. It was being extracted from my body, coming out of me in the form of shit all over the floor and in my pants. So there I am. Right, and you can imagine it's not a very pleasant experience for me, and afterwards I kind of cry a little bit. And it kind of taints my whole memory of being at this place. My whole memory of going to this museum is now tainted by that specifically. You know, it's funny, the only other thing I remember about that time I visited the museum, because we did go again, and I do remember everything from that specific adventure, but the first time I visited the museum, the only things I remember is going to see this electric chair guy and absolutely killing my childhood as I knew it up until that point in time, and what we got for lunch, and I got a Nutri-Grain fruit bar and some salt and vinegar chips from the gift shop, and that's all I remember. I don't remember anything else about the trip. I don't remember anything else we saw. I don't remember the train ride. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just remember those two things. Breakfast was, sorry, not breakfast. That lunch was pretty good, and I was traumatized for life. Now, to kind of elaborate on this, the animatronic prop in question is called Shake and Bake, and it's made by this lovely man here, this beautiful man here. He's a prop maker, especially like for haunt industries and stuff like that, and that's something I'm actually really interested in. So I went home and looked up this prop on my grandma's terrible 2009 Dell PC that was ruined by all the viruses I downloaded from trying to get SpongeBob as my mouse cursor on the laptop. And I saw all these videos of it and all that kind of fun stuff, and it kind of just led into my my horror obsession. I watched the 2009 Rob Zombie Halloween from that, and I watched the Nightmare on Elm Street remake and stuff, and that was my introduction to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise too. So not only was I traumatized, I was also tainted in my view to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, because apparently everyone hates that movie. I don't really understand why, but that's a topic for another video. I don't want to talk about that now. I will talk about it another day. I don't have the energy right now, okay? It's currently 2:54 in the morning. I'm sitting here with my balls popping out of my boxer shorts. My window's wide open. Every single motherfucker that walks past my window can see my ball sack. I don't have the energy to talk about horror franchises right now. I'm talking about my own museum experiences. So, with that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say for today's video. It's just a fun little recap of a little childhood story, a fun little story time. I might do more of these story time videos. They were quite fun to make. They are. I've done them before, very lazily before. I've rewatched a lot of my older videos recently, and some of them are quite lazy in terms of production. And when I say lazy, I mean the way I'm speaking. I don't mean in terms of actual production, because it's a YouTube video. What are you gonna do? But I think for the time they were uploaded, it makes sense, because I was going through a pretty rough patch. Anyways, that's about it. I was forced to watch a man electrocuted in a London museum as a 10 or 9-year-old child, and now I am PiranhaRoni.youtube.com. That's not the URL. Doesn't matter, because you're here anyway. I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure to join the Discord. Link below. Bye bye.